Welcome to the Explainer. You know, when we think about startups, our minds usually jump to those brilliant eureka moments and overnight success stories. But today, we're going to dig into the other side of the coin, the unglamorous, tedious, but absolutely essential work that really paves the road to success.
Okay, let's just start with a major reality check that cuts right through all the hype. A schlep, if you don't know the term, is basically a tedious, difficult, and kinda unpleasant task. And the hard truth is, building a company from the ground up, it's not about one single moment of genius. Nope, it's about taking on an endless series of these tough jobs.
I mean, we are constantly sold this myth, right? The visionary CEO has a brilliant idea and poof, overnight success and glamour. But the reality? Oh, it's so much different. It's way more likely to be filled with unsexy, grueling, but totally essential work. It's less about being the big picture visionary and a lot more about being the person who's willing to sit there and scan hundreds of product images just to get something done.
So what exactly is a schlep when we're talking about a startup? And maybe more importantly, why is our first instinct, our human nature, to avoid them like the plague? Let's break it down. See, a schlep isn't just some annoying chore. The key word here is essential. It's a task that is absolutely crucial to solving a real problem for people. Just think about a company like Stripe. Their schlep was figuring out the incredibly messy world of banks, financial regulations, and partnerships. I mean, it's the kind of work most people would run screaming from. But it was completely necessary to make online payments simple for the rest of us. So because we naturally want to avoid all this difficult, messy work, we developed this huge blind spot. It's been called Schlep Blindness. We get so focused on finding the easy, clever, elegant solution that we literally can't even see some of the biggest and most valuable startup ideas out there, all because they're hidden behind a wall of unpleasant work.
Pushing past that blindness is really what separates the people who just have ideas from the people who actually build things. So what does it really look like in the real world? Well, let's take a look at a company that was practically dead before it decided to embrace its schlep.
And that case study is Airbnb. Yeah, today they're a household name, right? But their early story is all about pure grit, constant rejection, and, believe it or not, a binder full of maxed out credit cards. They were on the verge of total collapse before the founders did something that made no sense on paper.
Seriously, by any rational measure, Airbnb should have failed. After a whole year of work, they had zero growth. They were funding the entire company themselves, literally keeping their maxed out personal credit cards in a binder. And to top it all off, this was late 2008. The entire global economy was in an absolute freefall.
The rejection they got was just brutal. In one investor meeting, the guy didn't just say no. He physically got up in the middle of their pitch, walked out, and just never came back. The founders always remember that he didn't even bother to finish his smoothie. That's how little he thought of their idea.
So why in the world didn't they just quit? Well, because they had a conviction that no investor could see. Since they were the very first Airbnb hosts themselves, they had actually felt the magic of their own product. They just knew people would love it if they could just get them to try it properly. And this is where they found their schlep. They figured out that the listings in New York City looked terrible because the photos were awful. So what did they do? They flew out, rented a camera, and literally went door to door, helping their own users take better pictures. This wasn't coding, it wasn't fundraising, it was manual, unscalable, tedious work. And that was the one thing that finally kickstarted their growth. Now, here's where it gets really interesting, because embracing these schleps can go from being just a survival tactic to being a core part of your business strategy. It's about deliberately choosing the harder path. So, the founders of an early e-commerce company called ViaWeb, they came up with this simple but really powerful metaphor for how a small, scrappy startup can take on bigger rivals. They called it the run upstairs strategy. The logic is actually so clear when you think about it. Picture this. You're being chased by a big, heavy bully. You find a staircase. Do you run up or down? You run up. Why? Because while the bully might be able to run down just as fast as you, his size and his weight become a huge disadvantage going upstairs. You are deliberately picking the path that's harder for you because you know it's going to be even harder for your competition. And that run upstairs strategy? That's exactly how you build what investors call a barrier to entry. The schlep itself, that difficult, tedious, complex work that nobody else wants to touch, that becomes your competitive moat. You're building a defense around your business made out of hard work that other people just are not willing or able to copy. Okay, so tackling these hard problems is obviously critical for success. But what kind of mindset do you need to actually endure this journey? Because it is not easy.
This is maybe the most important thing to understand. It feels that way for everyone. Just knowing that despair is part of the process is a survival tool. The whole journey is a roller coaster. You have these amazing highs, and then you have these unbelievably low lows. But it's a roller coaster, not a drowning. If you can just hang on, things will probably get better.
And this all leads to a really simple but kind of profound truth about building something new. Unlike a lot of other fields where pure talent is the main thing, in the startup world, sometimes sheer effort and persistence is enough. As long as you're willing to do the hard work and you're willing to adapt, you can get surprisingly far just by refusing to quit.
So, that brings us to the final thought I want to leave you with. That schlep you've been avoiding, that tedious, complex problem that just seems way too hard to even start thinking about. It might not be an obstacle. In fact, it might be your single biggest opportunity. Just sitting there, waiting for someone with enough grit to actually tackle it. Thanks for watching.